Hey guys, Whitney here. Welcome to the Passive Investing Made Simple Bootcamp. I'm your host, Whitney Elkins-Hutten, Director of Investor Education here at passiveinvesting.com, and I'm so excited that you have joined me today, that you have taken time not only to spend it here with me, but to invest in yourself. Now, we do this boot camp every single month so you can learn a new skill that's going to propel your passive investing journey. This month, we're going to talk about how to secure your future. Are your cash flow calculations ready for retirement? Now, before we dive in today, I just want to let you know you're in the right place if you want to learn how to take your active income and turn it into passive income and long-term wealth. Maybe you've tried investing in real estate before, but just couldn't quite get comfortable making the investment for some reason. Maybe you actually invested in a deal before. I went, oops, I made a mistake. I didn't do all the work that I should have. I didn't build all the skills that I should have. Or simply you just are a seasoned passive investor and you want to sharpen your skills. If this is you, you're in the right place. Now, again, my name is Whitney Elkins-Hutten. I'm the Director of Investor Education here at passiveinvesting.com. But I've actually been investing in real estate since 2002. I started off living, flipping, and house hacking, grew into residential buy and hold real estate, and then eventually into larger multifamily deals. And now I'm a partner in over 800 million in residential units, self-storage and express car washes, and a myriad of other businesses. And I've done it too. I've also flipped. I have traded time for dollars, not only in my day job, but also flipping. And I bring all of that experience to you here at passiveinvesting.com and in my coaching practice at Ash Wealth. And more importantly, I have documented it all in my book, Money for Tomorrow, that I published with Bigger Pockets in 2024. Now, all of that is to say, having those vanity metrics of like 800 million in real estate, 6,500 in units, that leads to one result. And that is why you're here, is to figure out how to get this one result. And that is, how can you get 100% choice and control on how you spend your time? Now, money is a tool. This is what I love teaching people how to do in my book, Money for Tomorrow. Also here in these webinars with passiveinvesting.com. Okay. And we can help you scale that portfolio here. Okay. We have deployed over $380 million in our debt fund investing structures that kick off consistent monthly cash flow for our investors. We also have 1.4 billion assets under management in the equity side of our portfolio that have distributed more than 51 million in distributions to our investors. If you want to learn more about what we do here at passiveinvesting.com, be sure to join the Passive Investing Club. If you're listening to this on audio, you can go visit the website passiveinvestingwithwhitney.com. If you're joining me on video, there's a QR code for you to scan. Not only do you get access to our open deals, you get free education and a free one-on-one call to discuss your investing goals here with us. So do that today. Now, we are going to be talking math in today's webinar. So as always, this webinar is for educational purposes. This is not financial advice, not legal advice, not tax advice. When you go through all the calculations we're going to do today, I want you to take them back to your accountant, to your lawyer, possibly make sure that you haven't missed anything that would be relevant to your own personal situation. Now, let's start getting into it. Calculating your cash flow in retirement. Okay. Now, math seems to be pretty straightforward, but I think there are some gotchas that happen along the way. And let's be real, 72% of Americans, retirees, actually underestimate their cash flow needs. That's why flexing this muscle, learning the skill is so vitally important. And the number one thing that these people mess up when they're calculating their cash flow in retirement is not necessarily how much their lifestyle costs today. They forget to adjust it for inflation. And not just inflation, what's going to happen to inflation on the year they retire, but also through their retirement years. Okay. And the risk of miscalculating this cash flow need is very critical. Okay. One, if we're just lucky, if we make a miscalculation, maybe we're just lucky when we miss some investment opportunities. Okay. Maybe we can't invest as often as we like to continue to grow our portfolio during retirement. Okay. But it can, even if we miss these calculations, it can lead to financial insecurity. And that is something that we, as investors, want to avoid 100%. We may be sitting here living a very blessed life, but if we don't sit here and actually flex the skill and learn how to calculate our needs today, in 10 years, in 20 years, in 30 years fairly accurately, it could lead to financial instability and insecurity for us. Now, here's the thing. That was very kind of Debbie Downer, very negative. All right. I'm hitting you right out of the gates with all the reasons why you must master this skill. But here's the positive. What I'm teaching you today is empowerment. You now know how to do this. So just as long as you listen through everything in the webinar, you get the free tool that's attached to this boot camp. Just as long as you do those two things and you actually do the work, you are so much further ahead than our counterparts, our 72% of retirees who actually don't do the work, right? And this empowerment will allow you to take control of your financial future. All right, let's dive in. How do we do this? Okay, step number one, we need to get the current lifestyle costs. We need to figure out what our current lifestyle today costs in today's dollars. Okay, because the only remedy to adjusting for inflation in retirement is to save early and often. So we need to be very real with ourselves on what our lifestyle costs today. That way we can adjust it properly in the future. Okay, so this is kind of step number one, or the pitfall number one, right? I work with a lot of investors one-on-one. My first question I ask them is, hey, do you know your income and expenses? Do you know what your lifestyle costs you? And they're like, yeah, I kind of got an idea. Well, yeah, they have an idea, but they've got so much income coming in from their day job, from their businesses, from other investments that getting a clear pulse on what their expenses truly are isn't, their first priority because they've got all the bills covered and they have leftover cash flow. Okay, that is again, a blessed situation to be in. But when we are calculating for retirement, we actually need to know what our lifestyle costs. Now, I sat down and did this with my family. Some members of my family that were approaching retirement a few years ago. They said, okay, great. Yeah, I think my lifestyle cost me about 10 grand a month. When we did the calculations, their lifestyle was costing them over $14,000 a month. That is a 40% increase in their expenses. I'm going to let that one sit. Okay. Now, if inflation's hitting us at, on average, quote unquote, 3% per year, right? Some years is more, some years maybe actually closer to that 3% number. Just imagine if you're off on your current lifestyle cost by 40%. That is huge. Okay, so we've got to get clear. We've got to be real with ourselves. This might be a very uncomfortable step, quite honestly, to take. Okay, but it is clarity is power, because once we have that number, true cost of our lifestyle in front of us, we've got some things that we can do there to impact that number. So I want you to break it up into, if you've never done this before, I want you to break it up into two buckets. So what are your fixed costs? Okay, those things that generally don't change month over month. Like if you have a mortgage, insurance, maybe your healthcare costs, things that aren't really adjusting via market rates on you. And then I want you to put all those other variable costs into another bucket, like travel, spending, hobbies, family activities. Okay, now, in my book, Money for Tomorrow, I lead you through a process to look at this. If you don't like the number that you see for your current cost of your lifestyle, okay, we can pull a couple different levers. One, we can actually go, okay, great. This is actually my lifestyle cost. That means I need to bring in more income. I've got a larger retirement gap that I need to close here. Or we can actually start decreasing expenses. Okay, and I give you a whole methodology to do that where it doesn't feel like deprivation. Okay, or you can actually pull both levers at the same time. Look to increase your income, look to decrease some of your expenses that don't align with your values. Okay, now we are minimizing the gap that we have to close in our retirement income. All right, so that's step number one. Get very clear, I should say, on your current lifestyle costs. Okay. Now, step number two, we need to actually like project into the future what those lifestyle costs will be. So I'm using some round numbers here. Okay. Step number one is define your annual expenses, both fixed and variable. Step number two is we got to take that number and start adjusting for inflation. And I really like this calculator. I give it to you, here in the tool, but also here in the webinar, if you're watching via video. It's smartasset.com/investing/inflation calculator, inflation-calculator. Okay, that is an amazing calculator. It's extremely simple to use. I'm sure there's more sophisticated calculators out there. But really you're moving three variables here. One, either the cost of your lifestyle, the inflation rate that you're adjusting for, or the timeline that you're looking at. Okay, those are the only three variables you're looking at. So I give you an example here on my screen. We're going to say that you come out and you say, my lifestyle costs me about $8,300 a month, which equates to $100,000 a year. Now, that's in 2025 dollars, right? What if you're retiring in 2035, 10 years from now? And we're going to say inflation's going to compound at 3% annually between 2025 and 2035. Okay. That means that $100,000 today, when you retire, should nothing change there, all right? Meaning that you didn't add additional expenses in, that your just current lifestyle actually inflated, okay? You would need $134,392 in 2035 dollars to live the same lifestyle. Okay. Now, this is where some people might be looking at this webinar and go, Whitney, I want a bigger lifestyle when I retire. I don't want the same lifestyle. I'm growing. I'm growing bigger. Well, cool. That's amazing. Then go back to step one. You figure out these two numbers for the current lifestyle you have. Okay. Today, what your lifestyle costs today, what that same lifestyle will cost in the future. And then if you want more, then in step one, you're going to calculate what your future lifestyle would look like in today's dollars, and then adjust that in step two. All right. Again, if you're a little confused, you have a tool to work back with here to help you through these calculations. Okay. Step one, get clear on your current needs. Step two, get clear on your future needs. All right. Now we got to calculate the gap here. And the gap is what the number that your investments must cover. So the calculation is looking at your future annualized expense number. You're going to subtract out any guaranteed income that you're going to get during retirement, like Social Security, pensions, if you've got any other like annuities, like any other guaranteed streams of income. And now that becomes your gap. All right. So you might have been looking at step two and going, Whitney, I'm having a heart attack here. I got to figure out how to get my investments to cover $134,000 annually. Holy smokes. Well, possibly, but most people have some sort of guaranteed income that they're looking at through a pension, some sort of retirement funding, some sort of, something coming into and that's going to be guaranteed stream at retirement. So figure out what those are, how much you're going to get, and then subtract those out. Now, I know for some of you here, you're thinking Social Security, that it may or may not be there. If you're curious of whether it's going to be there or not, maybe take your current Social Security estimate and either cut it by 25% or 50% if you want to have a larger cushion there. Okay. Now, let's take our example that we've been working with, this $100,000 of our current lifestyle cost today. In 10 years, that lifestyle costs us about $134,000. In 20 years, this lifestyle is going to cost us $180,000 at just a 3% inflation rate. All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to calculate our gap at 10 years and our gap at 20 years. Okay. In 10 years, we're anticipated to start bringing in, say, $60,000 in, maybe Social Security income for you and your spouse. It could be more, it could be less. I just threw in a number. And then maybe $40,000 that comes to you as a pension, which leaves your gap at $34,000 to close. That's all you need your investments to close is $34,000 in cash flow annually. All right. But in 20 years, and this is actually the part where a lot of retirees get off track, right? They work with a financial advisor, they calculate things at that initial retirement period, but we forget that inflation doesn't go away. All right. So that $180,000 that we need at the 20 years from now, we're going to back out $60,000 for Social Security. We should have gotten some sort of adjustment costs in there, I'm sure, but we're just going to back out $60,000 and $40,000 for the pension. Now our gap to close 20 years from now is $80,000. All right. So this is huge. This is amazing information for you to have today, because now you need to craft a plan to close not just a $34,000 gap in 10 years, but you need to be on track to close an $80,000 gap in 20 years. All right. Again, you might be hyperventilating about this and getting like sweaty palms, but clarity is power. That's what I want you to know. Okay. Because you know this right now, you now are empowered to do something about it. Now I'm going to throw you a couple bones here. Okay. For most people, okay, and take a look at your own personal situation. All right. There might be some things that you're going to actually have paid off, right? If you don't intend on moving, okay, maybe your house is paid off, right? So in your current lifestyle, and that $100,000 that in your today lifestyle, you have a house payment, you have kids' activities, you're feeding kids. I know I have a 12-year-old. She's expensive right now. But in 10 years, ideally she's going to be out of the house for sure in 20. So those expenses do go away. So there is a little bit of cushion that can be built in here just because, of natural life progression. If we're planning on paying off the house or paying down our housing costs, if we're getting the kids out of the house, we get to recoup some of that space back. All right. All right. So step 4 is how do we actually close the gap? Now that we've identified the gap, how do we close it? Well, my 2 favorite ways are both related to passive real estate. Okay. And my first favorite way is using note fund investments, but this requires you to start early and start often, which is actually our rule number 1 that we said at the beginning of this, because we're doing all this work now so we can actually clarify our needs and do the work now, not wait. Okay, not let time escape us. Time is our strongest ally when we're trying to address our retirement needs. So my 2 proven strategies, the things that I love, using note funds, because they kick off reliable monthly cash flow, they can be pretty recession resilient, also inflation resilient, and there's minimal time involvement required from you as the investor. So you get to go do those things and to go the things that you love, but also create that impact in the world that you were meant to create. Another favorite way of mine is using equity deals. Okay, but I like using equity deals that kick off cash flow very specifically. But we have, they're a little bit more subject to market conditions on whether how much cash flow they kick off. And then we're introducing some kind of timeline issues in there. So it's great if you're further away from retirement, you can quickly build up your portfolio with equity deals. But if you're closer to retirement, let's think about transitioning and adding in some of that note income stream. All right. But I'm going to show you the example in both cases of like how powerful both of these options, passive investment options, can be. So let's take a look at this particular investor. Okay, they're 7 years away from retirement and they're trying to build up cash flow through note funds. All right, so maybe they've got a chunk of change, about $500,000. They're going to repurpose out of their retirement accounts and get it into a note fund investment. So the early years, that note fund's going to compound at 9%. Okay, but then later years, it'll start compounding at 10% as it kicks over $1 million threshold. So year one, $500,000 with a preferred return of 9%, the annual distribution is $45,000. Sure, you take that distribution and go have an amazing trip, pay off, pay off some expenses that you might have. Or if you take that 45,000 and then add it to $100,000 the next year that you're going to put into your plan, now you're starting to build real wealth very quickly. Okay, we're reinvesting our profits into our real estate business. Okay, so the next year we get up to $58,000 cash flow. Awesome. By year 4, we're at $87,000. Amazing. You just closed potentially your 20-year cash flow gap. Okay, but if you continue doing this, by year 7, you're kicking off $161,000 in cash flow. You've darn near replaced your entire cash flow need with just passive note investing alone. Okay, maybe you don't have $500,000 ready to play with in your retirement account, but you're Whitney, I know I can, reinvest $100,000 a year into my portfolio. Here's another example. We can close the first year, that $100,000 investment is going to kick off $8,000. If we continue to add in $100,000 increments and reinvest our profits, by year 7, we're going to have just under $1 million size portfolio that's kicking off $81,000 a year in cash flow. We've closed that gap, that 20-year gap in under 10 years, right? And you can do the same thing with equity. I've got a couple other examples to show you here. Equity is going to, if it's kicking off cash flow, let's say 7% annualized cash flow, you're going to continue to reinvest your cash flow and your capital gains. If you have say like you have $500,000 initially to put down, and you can allocate $100,000 a year, you can get up to $104,000 in cash flow by year 7. Now, keep in mind, this is where I really encourage and coach my investors to think about, with the closer you get to retirement, start moving some of that equity into cash flow investments specifically that will, stabilize your ride, okay, reduce the volatility. And if you don't have that $500,000, we can do the same thing here. We can darn near close any of our income gaps with just a $100,000 a year annual investment. Now, I wanted to show you those 4 models because across all 4 of those models, really the key to closing your wealth gap at 10 years and 20 years into retirement is going to be reinvesting your profits that you're earning today in your passive real estate business, saving them and reinvesting them, okay? Because reinvesting surplus income doesn't just sustain your retirement, it helps accelerate the build of generational wealth. Okay, we've already seen examples where we've invested $100,000 at 8% annually. Okay, and in 10 years we have a base portfolio of 1.6 million. In 20 years we have a base portfolio of 5 million. And heck, if you allow that to compound, okay, if you're investing $100,000 a year, maybe you're like listening to this and you're 30 years old. If you invest $100,000 a year and you allow it to compound at 8%, in 40 years, you'll have $28 million. Okay. Time is our biggest ally. All right, so wrapping up here today, again, you have a tool that accompanies this boot camp to kind of walk you through these various calculations and help you digest the information. But I am always here to support you. But in wrapping up, I want to recap the steps we need to take. 1, we got to accurately estimate your lifestyle today, guesstimate your future lifestyle needs, okay? Continue to adjust in those numbers the closer you get to retirement. Calculate that income gap after you've taken out all of your guaranteed income streams, and then have a passive investing plan to bridge that gap and grow with you. All right, guys, Thank you so much for joining me here today. If you would like to discuss how we can help you close this income gap for you, jump on a one-on-one call with us. You can go to passiveinvestingwithwhitney.com and get access to my schedule, and I would love to help you out.